All right, we will go ahead and get started if that's okay with you, Susan.
Absolutely.
All right, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Tech Tips for Your Job Search, which is part of our Get That Job series here at the Champaign Public Library. My name is Jordan Neal, and I am the career librarian here at the Champaign Public Library. So thank you all for joining us. Before we get started, I wanted to briefly mention some library information that we will reiterate at the end of the webinar, as well as some webinar details. For the latest library news and updates, please visit our website, champaign.org, or you could visit our or follow our social media if that's an option for you. You can email us at librarian@champaign.org. We are still offering our Book a Librarian service virtually if you need any help at home. To request a session, just visit champaign.org/bookalibrarian to fill out a request form. And as always, our e-library is always open where you can enjoy ebooks, movies, and more using your Champaign Public Library card, or you can sign up for a virtual library card through our website for instant access. Finally, I would like to briefly go over a few features available to you that might help during this particular webinar. Depending on your computer or your device, if you take a look at your Zoom window, you could hopefully see audio settings at the bottom left of the screen. You can adjust your audio settings like changing your speaker by clicking or tapping on the upward arrow next to your speaker. Moving to the center bottom of your screen, you will see a chat and raised hand option. Clicking on the chat will open or close a chat box on the right side of your Zoom window, or sometimes it displays in the middle of your screen, and you can drag it around, again, just depending on your computer or your device. We invite you to use the chat to ask questions or leave comments for me and Susan. We'll have some opportunities for some engagement, hopefully throughout the presentation. You also have the option to raise hand to receive assistance. You could use this if you have any technical difficulties or you would like to speak and ask a question, so we can unmute you if you prefer not to type in the chat. Again, we invite you to use the chat or raised hand option to ask questions or leave comments for us, and we'll be sure to be pausing throughout the presentation for any questions. So without any further delay, we'll go ahead and get started here. So as I mentioned earlier, this is Tech Tips for Your Job Search. Again, my name is Jordan Neal, and I am the career librarian. And joining me today is the library's technology librarian, Susan Winkler. I'll let her go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm happy to be here. My name is Susan Winkler, and I'm our technology librarian here at the Champaign Public Library. And looking forward to share some of the tech tips that we've learned over the years for helping with job searching.
All right, well, thank you.
So we're going to kick things off right away with audience participation. Yay! So we'd like to know what you're hoping to get out of today's session. I know by seeing the title, Tech Tips for Your Job Search, hopefully you're looking to see if there's some things that can help you get over some of the hurdles that you've experienced, possibly with doing an online application or even finding where you could apply for a job online, resumes, cover letters, all of that kind of stuff that sort of goes into the technology world, as well as, maybe online interviewing and all of those things. So we're hoping to find out what you'd like to get out of the session.
So feel free to type it into the chat, or we can unmute you. You can raise your hand and we can let you speak. And again, we're hoping for just some opportunities to engage with us, interact with us. If you're not familiar with Zoom, this is a chance to play around with Zoom. No judgment here, only learning, right?
Yes, and we want this to be more of a conversation, so we definitely want to know, what things we can do to help you.
Okay, great. Looks like we have a comment here, maybe some tips to enhance my LinkedIn. Yes, everyone's been updating or trying to learn about LinkedIn, including us, definitely us. There's so many things on LinkedIn that you could, I think I have yet to maximize all the features of LinkedIn. I don't know about you, Susan.
Absolutely, yeah. I have a LinkedIn profile, but I definitely could stand to, update the photo that I have on there and add some of my more recent endeavors, like learning how to use Zoom and doing some online webinars.
And that looks like someone here with one more wants to learn better skills and looking for jobs online. Okay, great. All right.
Definitely help with that.
Tips for looking my best employers online. Well, we'll try our best to cover that. If not, ask a question and we'll try our best to answer it later.
Yes.
Okay. So why tech tips? You know, it's simply the reality related to the online job search these days and applying for jobs. You know, in order to apply for a job today, it involves navigating, you know, kind of a general technology landscape, including, you know, the online world and many other tech-related elements. We debated on including a statistic or not, but I had to do it for the librarians. We wanted to just briefly mention, you know, some numbers. So essentially here in the early 2000s, you know, the number of unemployed job seekers using the internet to search for a job rose from 25% to 75%, especially as more people gain access to the internet, whether they're at home or through the public library or at a job center. You know, here at the library, we are rarely helping community members with paper job applications. You know, we are helping people apply for jobs online. We are helping them set up their email using a keyboard and mouse, definitely navigating the internet or using a browser, things like that, or creating an online job profile. And, you know, many pieces of, you know, the job application process involve some use of technology. Or even something as simple as uploading a resume. You know, if you're not familiar with that, that could be daunting for some people, or even connecting to Wi-Fi, things like that. But technology seems to be involved at every step of the way, right? So we are just hoping to encourage all of you to perhaps, you know, consider becoming more acclimated with technology if you're not already. I know I'm always learning technology. I'm always talking to Susan about what I'm learning here at the library. And we're just hopefully, you know, as Susan mentioned a lot, we want to, how technology can hopefully help and not hinder you during your job search and improve your overall experience when you are applying for jobs. And as we mentioned earlier, we are just hoping to have that conversation and not talk at you the whole time. We want to talk with you. So again, please feel free to type into the chat or raise your hand and we will unmute you.
So as Jordan said, she's constantly learning, and so am I. So even though I'm the technology librarian, I am always learning new things with technology too. So it's kind of a lifelong learning adventure. But today specifically, we're really wondering, what do you think you need to be aware of to apply for a job in today's climate? What kind of tech issues have you faced? There's no right or wrong answer. If you want to just answer in the chat, or again, we can unmute you too. You know, we want to know if you've seen some barriers and how we can help overcome those barriers for you, and things that you might especially need to be aware of now, if you have any thoughts.
Let's see. Someone sends you how to stand out from other applicants online. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about that in a lot of these, at least the career workshops, where in Resume Basics, Job Search 101, what you could do, especially on your resume, to make yourself stand out, maybe using keywords that you see in the online job description, things like that, things to get past applicant tracking systems, which we'll talk about in a few moments here too. Yeah, I think that everyone encounters something like that. Thank you for sharing that. And going back to LinkedIn, same with me and LinkedIn. I swear, I'm just always trying to learn. I mean, I taught a LinkedIn basics class, and even during that, I was learning a lot more. So,
yeah, a lot of times the best thing to do is to kind of get in there, push some buttons, play around with something, get acclimated to it before you have to do it in sort of a live professional setting too. So definitely practicing and playing with stuff ahead of time. And for me, I think the thing I need to be most aware of if I'm in today's climate trying to apply for a job is a lot of things. If I make it to the interview round, you know, knowing how to set up my home office or interview space and how to make things look right so that it looks professional and you can't necessarily hear my cats yowling in the background. And and we'll talk about how to do that too.
We have some others in the chat. How do you know if the information you enter is secure? Yeah, that's a concern for Susan. I think has some information on that. I
Mm-hmm.
think you've hosted a webinar on something similar.
Yeah. So we do. We have some internet security webinars about internet safety and security, and then we actually have someone from the Illinois Attorney General's office that comes. Has come once before and is coming again in January to talk about internet safety and security too. And there's a good correlation between, and we'll talk about this a little bit in a bit for Jordan, where if it's too good to be true, it may be already too good to be true, and you won't want to enter your information. But yeah, there's ways to tell if a website, at least if a website is an unsecured connection, and if things are encrypted.
Yeah, and then finally, someone says learning how to complete assessments online. Yes, whether it's required for the job application or it's at the very end, that's something we've also encountered. But hopefully we'll try to answer some of those questions, whether directly or indirectly, by the end of the webinar here. All right, so moving forward. So just as we mentioned, technology is involved at almost every step of the process, not just for the job search, but, for the professional world. Overall, there's been a shift from kind of this in-person, paper-based application world and many other tasks related to, the job search and job application, a move to the online environment, which of course involves technology. We're rarely encountering people applying for jobs in person or on those the job kiosks they have at some employment sites, things like that. Again, we are helping people whether they have an appointment or they walk in applying for jobs, and again, involving technology. And sometimes, some people are great with technology. Sometimes they need to enhance some of those skills. And so this is primarily the focus of workshops like this, is to help people like that. Networking these days, I was saying job centers also the same thing. Some of them have been closed because of the current situation or the pandemic. So a lot of people are coming here to the public library, not just for help with jobs, but to help with their technology skills. And that's why we also have the technology webinars that Susan graciously presents. Networking these days, especially with this current situation, involves a lot of technology, whether you're emailing someone, connecting with them via social networks like LinkedIn, as someone mentioned before, or video conferencing. A lot of networking recently involves the use of technology, especially as people are, trying to facilitate social distancing as well. Here at the library, sometimes it's just easier for us to meet via Zoom call or a Skype call because of social distancing or because we're wearing our masks. And sometimes it's just difficult for me to hear people these days. So sometimes it's easier to have a virtual meeting. Even the platform that we're using right now, Zoom, involves the use of technology. The fact that you've connected with us today involves some skills with technology. And then finally, congratulations.
Yes.
And then finally, further add to our points, not only are people applying jobs to the employer's website, but there are now online employment resources like Indeed and Monster and LinkedIn that they try to kind of be a one-stop shop for job applications, but they could also allow you to upload your resume so you can share it with multiple employers at one time through these sites, and that definitely involves technology, although I have some thoughts on
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that a little bit later on uploading resumes to these sites. But again, you're also crafting cover letters and resumes using word processing documents and typing them and maybe converting them to a different file. All of this, again, involves technology.
Yeah, and some of the major things that you will want to think about too is where is the best place for you to be to start your job searching process. Do you have a good solid internet connection at home, or do you need to go to another location with better or faster internet? Can you navigate a website to even find where their employment section is? And then can you figure out how to navigate how to upload a document or find it on the computer and upload it? And we're constantly helping folks with all of these components. And we're starting with a very broad view of the sort of barriers that you might come across when you're trying to do these applications online. And as Jordan mentioned, the employment websites that you can possibly go to. And the idea is really that technology should help, not hinder you, both for the job search and beyond. The skills that you gain by doing these online applications will also help you for other applications in the future. You know, if you end up with a box that you haven't filled out, but it has a little star next to it and it turns red, that tells you that you have to, that's a required field, something that you have to fill out. But you may not know that until you've encountered it. And we also want to say, you know, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick demo of the employment website idea here of the website navigation. So Jordan, I'm going to go ahead and switch screens with you
Sure.
for just a second and pull this up. Oh, and I also want to share, so we're going to start on our career services page at the library. So it's champaign.org, and yours, it's /career-services, yes, Jordan?
Yes, I believe so.
So that's the career services site for the library. So please take a look, check that out as well. But what I wanted to show you real quick is just a pretty simple example of two competing big box hardware stores where if you wanted to get a job here, the first thing you want to do is try to find where anything says employment, jobs, careers, any of those terms. And usually those things are going to be toward the bottom here, usually in the what we call the footer in the fancy web terminologies, because everything's designed for shopping. So everything up above is going to be shopping. But if you're interested in employment, if you come over here to where it says about Lowe's, who we are, careers. Now here's another thing another tip you might find worthwhile is to go and research the company before you actually fill out your applications. Find out a little bit more about the company. Find out who they are from their website. Find out more about their career opportunities. So if I tap on careers here, I can search for a keyword of what job I might be interested in. Usually there's a place to narrow your search down by your location. There's some information about joining their team and some profiles of folks. So it's a good place to go and kind of find out a little bit more about the company that you might decide to work for too. And then you can actually look for jobs individually on the company's websites. The same thing would be true at Menards. I'm going to switch to Menards here real quick. You know, we have a big shopping day coming up, so a lot of it's coming up on here today. But again, I can go down to the bottom of their page and see if I can find where it might say something about careers or employment. Same idea, you can tap there. You know, even the jobs here at the library, we have an online application process and it's under jobs. So you'd go to the jobs section and then be able to apply. And here, when you apply, you know, you can put in which state, which city, everything else here. But as soon as you get that far, once you hit the point of applying, then you have to be able to you have to have all those documents that you can upload pretty much immediately, like your cover letter and everything into their jobs portal too. So it's good to know how to do those things ahead of time. Okay, and I'm gonna go, do you wanna go ahead and jump back to the PowerPoint?
Sure thing.
So I just wanted to show you, those are some key terms to look for when you start navigating to it. Also, Jordan has added, so I don't know if you've taken any of the tech workshops, I do have what I call the 3 Ps, which is practice, patience, and perseverance. Sometimes it can be the websites can be jumbled and complicated to find what you're looking for. And a lot of times you need to have some patience. You need to practice the technology. It will get easier. It will become more comfortable. And then we've added our 4th P, which is the public library, because now we're able to offer these wonderful services and these wonderful career assessment helping tools and Jordan's wonderful classes that can help you hopefully on your journey. And the hope is also that as you become more familiar with the tech, it will become a lifelong learning adventure for you. And the more you spend time with it, the more you'll realize that it actually should and does help you, hopefully.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So any questions at this point? We said we would pause for some questions. So you can type them into the chat or you can raise your hand and we will unmute you. All right. Well, feel free to type those at any point. I don't see any at the moment. All right, but we do have a question for you. Like we said, we were hoping that people would engage with us. How do you stay organized? Technology or not, but how do you stay organized? I always joke around with Susan. I have a shared calendar with my family, and essentially, if it's not in a calendar or share document at all with my husband. It's not happening to him at all. So that's a way we stay organized at a family level. What about you, Susan?
Yeah, so if we're talking non-technology, I use our fridge and I will post things that need to be addressed onto our fridge so that I can visually see them as I walk past them in the kitchen. But for the most part, I am someone who uses apps to keep track of things. You know, we have an app for a grocery list. We have that, you know, we share, and then you know, one of the best things I think is spreadsheets. I'm a big fan of spreadsheets to keep track of things like, you know, my contacts and everything else. And also, like you, a calendar. And it's a Google Calendar. And honestly, I set the alerts for 15 minutes ahead because I can almost get anywhere in town in 15 minutes so that I'm not late for something in case I did forget it.
Right, right. Yeah, others here have folders in a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
Some people use Post-it notes around the walls by their desk.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I use Post-it notes too. Some people use a calendar. Yeah, iPhone calendar. I use my Google Calendar. Yeah, I think we all use those. Everybody, whatever works for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has a date book, a Google Calendar, and Outlook. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
me right now.
Yes. Yeah, I have a physical calendar that I write stuff onto, and then I also have it in my Google Calendar on my phone so that I will see it, you know, visually see it on the printed page,
Right.
and then I will also be able to see it in the tech.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
So here at the library, we are not only helping people apply for jobs, but you know, everything that comes along with applying for jobs, you know, including keeping track of where you've applied, your resumes, your most updated resume, your email accounts, things like that, which not only involve technology, but staying organized as well. There are so many times, you know, here in Career Services, we've helped someone apply for a job, and then they ask me the next week to maybe apply for that same job, or they're having trouble keeping up with the latest version of their resume. So Susan will now discuss how technology can possibly help you stay organized.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, for myself, I use spreadsheets quite a bit. I also use cloud storage, which if you're unfamiliar with cloud storage, essentially it's just having your documents stored off-site that you can get to using an internet connection. So either through your phone or Wi-Fi, wherever you are. And a lot of services actually give you a little bit of cloud storage for free. So Microsoft does this, Google does this, I think Dropbox still does this. So what you might consider doing is basically crafting your one version of your resume, putting it up in cloud storage, and then you can tailor that resume to the different jobs that you're applying for, and you can keep track of the different versions of your resume, and you can put them all up in cloud storage. That way you can access them very easily if you come to the library, if you're at home, and then if something does happen to your physical device, you still have those documents saved somewhere, and you can work on them in alternate locations. I'm going to show briefly here, if I can steal the screens again.
Sure.
From Jordan. And we're going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and share. So this is our demo Google account that we use for our tech training classes. And I have set up in our Google Drive, which is our Google Cloud Storage, a section for career. So if I'm looking at my drive, this is the big overarching stuff where you're going to see some getting started series stuff. That's the tech stuff. And then I have a folder. So someone mentioned they use folders and notebooks. You can translate those folders and notebooks into the online environment very easily too, and use the same sort of structure and organization that you do already with those. So for example, here would be my career search folder. And when I open it, I've got a job search tracker. So that's my spreadsheet that I can use to keep track of which jobs I've applied for, when all the application materials are due. And then you'll see here I've got 2 different resumes that I've started for 2 different jobs. So a resume for a librarian here at the Champaign Public Library, and then one at Chicago Public Library. And so these would each be tailored to those positions. Now I'm going to show you the job search tracker here. And this is one that's actually from Google. And available through their templates. So you can find this one through their templates and just go ahead and download it. And you'll see here, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it for you. Gives you you can put in the employer information, the job title, the details of the job. You have these pull down menus that you can use to say whether or not you've submitted your application, yes or no, your resume, and then you can see all the different, if there's any, other documentation that you need to submit, you can get that in there too. Okay, so that's one way to keep track, especially if you're applying for a lot of jobs in various different states or countries or places. So you can keep a little bit better track of which ones you've actually filled everything out for, or where you are in the process for each one of them. Because I know it can be tiring to spend a lot of time searching and applying for a whole bunch, and then they can admittedly get a little jumbled. So this is a good way to help keep track of what you've done and where you've gone to. This is not the only option. There are many other options out there. For example, the Muse put together a spreadsheet to track everything in your job search. So it's a customizable interactive job application tracker that you can use through Google Sheets. And you can download it for free and just use it, which is great. And then they've got some other stuff in here about, common interview questions, all that kind of stuff, including things like when should you send a thank you letter or a thank you email, and how to keep track of the contact person that contacts you. And then I also wanted to show, let me see if I can just switch to this or if I need to share. Okay, I think I have to actually share the other part here. One moment. I'm going to share this too. You can also make your own. So this is, for example, our colleague Kat has made this list of prospective employers Word document. So if you're not as comfortable with spreadsheets, you can also do it in Word and just make it a table and then fill in whatever you need to. And you can make it as simple as putting in the title of the employer and the date that you applied for it. So you can make them as complicated as you want or as easy as you want based on your needs. So I just want to say that stuff is out there, and that's one way that hopefully the tech will help you and not hinder you in your prospective job search. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so Jordan can jump back into the PowerPoint here. And again, if you have questions on that, I'll put some of those links in the chat for how to get to those different places.
Okay, great. Thank you, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, do we have any questions? I don't think we've had any since the last session. So again, feel free to post your, we might have one here.
Oh yes, so Muse, so the question is, what is Muse and how do you get it? It's actually just a website that you can go to, and it's just the Muse, and then it's got some mostly career tips. It's a broader site than that, but at least for the purposes for today was just showing the career section where it has some interview tips and then things like the spreadsheet tracker. So yeah, I'll go ahead and put it in the chat there too.
Okay, great.
Website address for it. In fact, I can put the one for the actual, let me jump in there. Okay.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions at the moment, so we'll move forward. So I wanted to discuss some technology pieces when it comes to actually searching and applying for jobs. Some of this we discussed in our Job Search 101 webinar, but the first thing was account profiles just in general. So for many employers, you'll most likely have to create a profile or a username, or sometimes that username is your email address. So this is just when we remind you to keep it accessible and professional. Try your best to maintain access to any of your online profiles, especially your email address. I always tell a story about how we helped someone get a job here at the library, and his new employer had to send them all types of documents for their new job so they could fill it out, but he forgot his email password, and he had to call his new employer that on the first day of employment to give them a new email address, which wasn't great for everyone involved. And definitely not the best look when you just accepted a position. So again, just keep that accessibility in mind. When you're creating your usernames and your email addresses, please just, again, default to professionalism. Perhaps consider using, not using the I like to party at gmail.com or anything like that. Anything that you don't want a prospective employer to see. Another thing to consider that we encounter here at the library is something as simple as file types. First and foremost, make sure you're following the directions or the guidelines of the job application, but When in doubt, consider saving your resume or cover letter or any other document you're saving and submitting, maybe as a PDF file. It's simply just one of the most universal file types that most employers could probably open that won't compromise your formatting or your content. Sometimes a doc or docx file would work, but I think PDFs work the best. And Susan always has to remind me what PDF stands for, so I'll go ahead and let you insert that here.
Yeah, portable document format.
Okay, thank you.
Basically, it's an image. So that's one reason why it doesn't mess with any formatting that you've done, is because it's essentially an image. It also means that way others can't go in and edit your PDF easily.
Yeah, it opens the way you want it to look, essentially, to the employer. That's the best way I can describe it. I also wanted to briefly mention applicant tracking system, which we discussed in details in our resume basics workshop. But before your resume even gets into the hands of a hiring manager, it might go through an applicant tracking system or a resume scanning software. These systems are essentially designed to save recruiters time just to find an optimal a viable candidate. Among other functions, they sometimes, these systems collect and sort through, hundreds, maybe thousands of resumes based on certain qualifications. But, however, sometimes adding certain things to a resume or a cover letter might prevent your resume from making it through these systems, which of course aren't all the same. So imaging, certain fonts, special formatting sometimes just can't be computed by these systems. So that's something else to consider when it comes to technology and streamlining processes, but perhaps preventing your resume from moving forward. I also wanted to mention that you should try to have your resume ready for any opportunity. We definitely encourage people to tailor to the job position, but perhaps saving it within online or in cloud storage, as Susan mentioned, might help you have that on hand. And then finally, I mentioned mindful application and fulfilling application requirements. Just, try your best to fulfill what is asked for within the application, even if it is repetitive. I think me and Susan have been in the same boat where you're filling out that same information in a job application that's already on your resume. But, you ultimately want the job, so you're going to do whatever it takes, right? And we help a lot of people here at the library fill out that same information. So just try to be patient. It's not ideal, but again, try to adhere to the application requirements. And if they're asking for a PDF file and you're typing your document in Pages, be sure you save it as a PDF document. And again, I mentioned mindful application because, as we mentioned earlier, there are some employment sites like Indeed or LinkedIn that allow you to upload your resume kind of not en masse, but one resume for multiple employers. But when you do something like that, technology might be helping you there, but you're not able to cater or tailor that resume to the job position. And, you want to use some keywords from those specific job postings. Again, we talk about this during our one-on-one appointments and in resume basics. But we really recommend that. I'm not saying avoid it entirely, but that's just something to keep in mind when you're uploading one resume. You can't really customize it per the employer and what they're looking for. And then finally, at the end, just do what works for you. We know everyone's situation is different, so just try your best to fulfill those application requirements. But at the end of the day, you're the one applying for the job and seeing if it's the best fit for you. So in regards to the tech aspects, we're happy to help here at the library. But again, it's ultimately going to be for you.
Yeah, so, and speaking of course, since this is a class on tech tips, there are some things you should consider. This is especially if you make it to an interview round, but consider your environment and the equipment that you have available to you. If you have the ability to have a closed door room, like an office or a guest bedroom even perhaps, where you can have the least amount of distractions, that's a good place to start. You want to consider whether or not you want to get a free account. Zoom has a free account that you can get for, and you can do 40 minutes with up to 3 people. I think they did lengthen that during the course of our current situation too. But just consider all the things like Skype and every other video conferencing. You know, now there's Google Meet as well. And employers may be asking you to jump into these services to do an interview there. So you want to make sure as soon as you hear which service that they use, you'll want to go in, and if you're not familiar with it, go ahead and practice, grab a friend, have them help you practice with it. Consider your internet connection. Consider a backup internet connection. So if you have, a home internet connection, maybe you have a phone that can be a hotspot, or you can come check out a hotspot from here at the library, just so that you also have a backup plan just in case, because you do have to assume that something may go wrong. So it's good to prepare for something that might not work out the way it's supposed to. That by the same token, making assumptions about what the employer knows about the software that they're using may also hinder you too, because employers may not have the same technical level that you already do, where you've been practicing in the program and they have not had the time to do it. So it can also come across looking very good if you can help them with a troubleshooting issue on their side as well. Consider your equipment. Are you using a computer? Are you using a phone? If you're using a phone, are you having to hold the phone up here with your hand the whole time while you're interviewing, and your arm is going to get tired and it's going to bounce a little bit? Think about, putting it on a stable surface. What angle are you at? Think about having a webcam or your headphones and a mic so that you can block out the distracting noise, which goes into the audio and visual as well. You can see me here. I'm basically the only thing you see behind me is a cabinet shelf, and then a couple of paint pictures. So think about your lighting, think about your visuals, and again, the way you can prepare like that is to practice. So find someone who can practice with you. Turn on your webcam. Grab a pair of headphones if you have them. Test your mic. Test all of these things before you're in an interview scenario. Make sure you understand daylight saving time and time zones, because if someone's calling you from the East Coast and they say 9 a.m. Eastern time, that is not the same thing as 9 a.m. Central time, and that can hinder you. Or if they're in another country, you want to know how far ahead or behind they are, so that if you're interviewing with them at 9 a.m. their time, it may be 9 p.m. our time. So keep that in mind as well. And then if you have to troubleshoot, do your best to roll with what happens and all the variables, because that's going to show that you have a good handle on how to problem solve too.
Yes. And record all of it if you're willing and you have that option. Sometimes I do that for my presentations. Sometimes it's not the easiest to go back and look at it, but it's been helpful for me.
Yeah, I've noticed that if I'm in a video scenario and I have a chair that I can move, then I'm often moving my chair in the videos. And since I've noticed that, I've tried to take care of that and do a little bit less of that, because I know it can be distracting for people who are watching.
Right,
so.
Right. All right, well, thanks, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certainly professional considerations too when it comes to your job search and technology. So for example, if you're emailing with a potential employer, be mindful of what you're saying and how you're saying it. I'm going to try to parallel, to what Susan was all saying here. Everyone can easily go back to their email correspondences these days and just read previous exchanges. Unfortunately, we always don't get the job, and we always don't learn through a phone call. Sometimes it's through an email, so just be mindful and maybe concise, but just know what you're writing. Not just email, sometimes you're messaging back and forth on LinkedIn. I know I've certainly corresponded with professional contacts on LinkedIn, so that's something else to consider. Again, what are the names of your online profiles and your email addresses? Just consider your technology footprint when it comes to your overall professional network. Susan will talk on that in just a moment here. I did want to talk about video conferencing, as there is a high possibility of encountering this during your job search, especially if you're granted an interview these days. We've certainly been helping people here at the public library with that, so we wanted to mention that. So it might be through Zoom or Skype or a platform like that. So Susan mentioned, the technology pieces, but again, there are some professional things to keep in mind. Here at the library, we're certainly, we've helped people with practice interviews. So if you're hopefully granted that real life virtual interview or even presenting professionally, just keep the following in your head. First off, find a private space if Susan mentioned. For now, we have some study rooms sometimes available here at the library, so just check in with us or our website. But essentially, if you're at home, try to find that quiet place, away from any noise. Make sure that you're checking in with your family or your colleagues on what you're doing. If you're about to, here at the library, we tell people when we're about to present a webinar. I know I always let them know. I make sure to turn off all my notifications on email, or I turn my phone down. So not only that, so it doesn't make a noise, but so it doesn't distract me during the whole presentation. If you're not speaking, consider muting yourself if that's an option for you. Just be mindful of your breathing, coughing, or maybe even sighing into your microphone. Ultimately, just be mindful that you have a live mic on, and just default to that professional behavior. When you sign into Zoom, again, which name is displaying on the screen? Sometimes I know people share accounts with family members, things like that. You'll most likely have a video on if you're presenting professionally or you have an interview, but if not, which image is showing up on your video? I know for my Zoom account recently, at least I have a personal Zoom account besides my professional one, I had to change that image. It wasn't a bad image, just wasn't one that I wanted to use. It wasn't that recent. If you hopefully have a job interview online, still dress as if it's the real person interview, which, of course you want to look nice and monitor your appearance, but just kind of helps you get into the mindset for a job interview. Perhaps avoid the dangling bracelets or the earrings that might make some noise. Perhaps be mindful of your lighting situation. Here at the library, we use ring lights to, light up our faces, but we know that's not an option for everyone. So, perhaps maybe face a window so you have natural light illuminating your face. But be careful if it's sunny, because sometimes you might be squinting. I know I've encountered that sometimes. And again, just like in any interview, be mindful of your body language, your tone of voice, and especially pacing, because depending on everyone's internet connection, there might be a lag with responses. So speak slowly for clarity. That's certainly advice that I have to give myself every once in a while. As far as eye contact, I know it's tricky. I try my best to look at the camera. I'm looking at it right now, but essentially it's a green dot that I'm looking at, to be honest with you all. Sometimes I'm trying to look at my presentations here, but again, try your best if you can. The nice thing about being at home is sometimes you can have notes that people can't see off the camera. So you could certainly have that. Have it as a guide, but make sure you're not reading them. And also just make sure that your eyes are not looking down the entire time at your notes. So if you can, just quickly try to glance at them, or even try to have them at eye level here. Let's see if I have anything else to mention. And also finally, just some of those tried and true talking points that for you professionally. I know it's not necessarily technology, but like if you practice the technology aspects, as Susan has mentioned, that you could also have your accomplishments at the ready. So those are not going to change over a weekend or over a week. Those are going to be according to you and your professional highlights. So it doesn't hurt to practice those, not just for the interview, but to kind of get you all pumped up and increase your confidence for the interview. So try to have some those concise and compelling statements ready. We've been talking a lot. Any questions?
Yes, any questions about that section? About barriers you've seen? Or I know I've certainly had to do that where I'm like, okay, my resume has all of my jobs already listed on it, and yet when I go to an online application, you have to fill in all of the employment information again, even though it's on your resume. And that is just because, they're using that form in the online environment too. It's important to have it in both places. So.
And that just might be the software that they have to use. They might not like it either, who knows? But again, I want the job, so I'm going to do what it takes to get the job.
Yeah, and I think your comment about the applicant tracker systems too, where if you're pulling keywords from those job descriptions and putting those into your resume, you know, so those job applicant tracking systems will flag that you are using the keywords that they are also using in those job descriptions.
Yeah, it's something we really emphasize in career services. You know, at some point, we always say this, a human being has programmed those words into the system because that's what they were looking for. So I would try my best to align myself, you know, using those, if not the words, and then the general language.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as far as the online environment, you know, we encourage you to perform routine online audits of your online life, which might include something simple like Googling yourself, as Susan will talk, or checking your presence on social media from the outside world. So we'll go ahead and have Susan discuss this.
Yeah, so if you think about your your online profiles for either social media or other instances of where you have sort of a digital footprint, it's a good idea to do what we call an online audit, where you basically can go through and, you know, I think I had a MySpace account way back when, don't have a MySpace account anymore, but I've moved, you know, everything's moved to Facebook and Instagram, and so you want to think about what you're writing there, what you're posting. You want to think about what can be seen by other people, what's public, what's private. What settings do I need to change to make things more private? You know, and really educate yourself on what you can control. Once something's out there, it's online, there's not a whole lot you can do to control it. But if you take some steps ahead of time, and then you change some settings, you might be able to control a little bit more than you would otherwise. And then yes, Google yourself, exactly. Are there other people out there that have your same name? And do they come up before you in a Google search? How far down the list are you in a Google search? How easy are you to discover online? So I'm going to show that real quick here in case you're interested. And then I'm also going to talk about Google Alerts here, which is another thing that I think is very useful to have and do. So one second, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen instead over here. So if I'm going to go ahead and Google myself here, just put in Susan Winkler. So these are the things that come up first. And there is a funny story about Susan Winkler, who is a pharmacist, because she actually was in my hometown, and I used to get phone calls for this person. And I always thought it was really funny that we had the same name when I was in high school. So they are coming up before me, but then you can see here's a lot of LinkedIn profiles. So think about the rankings of what Google ranks first for the search results that you're going to get. So, you know, if you have a LinkedIn profile, you might come up earlier in Google searches if you do have that presence. So maybe you choose to have it because it's going to come up higher in these search results. Or, you know, the Facebook, and you have a professional Facebook account, you know, and then you have a personal Facebook account. It's totally up to you. So, yeah, so that's that. I mean, you could also do news and images and see, and that's good. That's part of the online audit, is to look at the images and see, you know, where do you appear in the images, and is it your professional profile? Is it your professional photo? Things like that. And then the other thing I want to mention too is Google Alerts. And if you haven't seen Google Alerts before, you can set up Google Alerts both for if you're watching a particular company that you're interested in applying for a job at. Create an alert about it. Find out more about the company by creating an alert and see, you know, where they appear on the web. What are they doing? Where, you know, what are they developing? Where are they located? What's happening at the company that's making it to the news and out onto the internet? So it works both ways. You can find out more about particular companies, or you can also create one about yourself and see what comes up out there about you, or other people with your name. So it's another way to sort of do that online audit, finding out what's out there about yourself. Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and stop sharing there so Jordan can take back over. And I'll put the link for that in here too.
Okay. Let's see. Thank you, Susan. Oh, I think we have, or is that you?
That's me.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay,
that was me posting the Google Alerts there for everyone.
Just, like Susan was saying, content control, we just mean, you know, when you have the chance, check it. It's changing every day, especially based off what you put out there. So routinely check it when you have a chance. Okay.
Yeah, so you may find too that in that sort of cleanup experience, maybe you don't need content from 1999 anymore on
Right.
your Facebook profile,
Right.
or you know, certain photos that you're like, that was, you know, a long time ago. But again, it's your personal preference. It's your personal online audit of what's out there and what sort of persona you wanna broadcast.
Sure. Thank you. So as you apply for jobs and submit those applications online, we did want to mention some areas where you should be mindful, hence our careful and cautious line here. First off, I wanted to mention that, you know, we are librarians, but we are not lawyers. But, you know, during your job application process, online or not, you know, there are some items or red flags that you want to be mindful of during that application process. And again, we'll always say we're happy to help you find that information here at the library. One item, you know, that a prospective employer can ask you or require you to answer are certain things like related to the federal and state level. There are some prohibited practices. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. Which includes discriminatory questions at the hiring stage. So any questions related to basically race, age, gender, religion, disability, sexual orientation, those would be items of concern and red flags. I would not only question if that was a legitimate opportunity, I would suggest avoiding that situation entirely and perhaps even consider reporting it. Now, there is a difference between information being required or volunteered during in a job application. You know, here at the library, many customers ask us, you know, should they be able to answer, are they required to answer these questions? And a lot of the time it will say this information is volunteered, can be volunteered, or sometimes it will say prefer not to say, things like that. And a lot of time it's at the end of a job application. So it's just, again, something else to be on the lookout for. Something else is money. If they're asking you to pay a bunch of money, that might be a potential red flag. We know that some people have to cover some of their travel expenses for job opportunities, but usually the employer is covering that. And especially now with video conferencing, I think a lot of people have been turning to those platforms. So as I mentioned, sometimes I mentioned that I'm not just a librarian, but I'm also a registered nurse. And I know even nurses receive sign-on bonuses sometimes. However, if it's $1 million sign-on bonus, I would question if that was a legitimate opportunity for me. Ultimately, you know, if it's too good to be true, I would just continue to perform my research about those companies. You know, check in with the Better Business Bureau, come to the library. We certainly have a lot of online resources, not just for career development, but to help you research some of those companies. You can certainly come in, but ultimately perform your research, go with your gut, and not just to determine if it's a legitimate job opportunity, but to see if it's ultimately a good fit for you. Anything to add here, Susan?
Yeah, absolutely. We can help you out. We've got some databases where we can look up companies and help you do some research.
All right, great. Speaking of databases, we of course had to talk about library resources that we offer here at the library. If you have a Champaign library card, or you can sign up on our website for a virtual library card. So the first one we're going to talk about is Gale Courses.
Yeah, so Gale Courses is actually one of my, well, actually, Jordan let me do both of the ones that I am most fond of here. Gale Courses is basically 6-week courses that are taught by college instructors. New courses begin each month. Lesson, and then you can take the different lessons and you can get feedback from instructors through the online dashboard that they have. There are all sorts of topics, things like public speaking, software specific, so like Microsoft Word. So I know someone was mentioning online assessment tests. One way to prepare for those is if you take some of these 6-week courses in, you know, say Word or Excel, if you know that proficiency in those are going to probably be part of your job requirements, going in and taking some of these courses ahead of time will certainly help prepare you for those online assessment tests that you have to take. It's just a really nice way to have an instructor that's there too. So if you have questions and you can get feedback on assignments and things like that. And it's all free with your library card.
Yes. We have JobNow, which we frequently use here in career services at the library. This resource provides, cover letter and resume templates. It has a great live chat feature for career or job related questions, especially, again, if you're going to be having an interview pretty soon and you maybe prefer some privacy, you can connect with this resource. One of the biggest takeaways for this resource for us is that, one, you could upload your document like a resume or a cover letter to their resume lab, and you'll get expert feedback of your resume 1 to 2 business days after you submit your document. So we find it really helpful here at the library. I've certainly used it myself with my own resume, and I thought it was helpful.
Yeah. We also have access to LinkedIn Learning with your Champaign card, and LinkedIn Learning is similar to Gale Courses in that it is education-based, but here they're individual videos, and then you can add them into making a series of videos that will give you basically a course, and you can get certification. You can also get certification with Gale Courses in some instances, but they have all sorts of videos on dealing with customers, customer service, office dynamics, as well as things for computer software and technology-based things like coding and all of those things. So, and these are nice because you can watch a 5-minute intro video, do something else, come back, watch the 10-minute, watch the different lessons kind of broken up how you need them to be.
And then finally, we have Testing and Education Reference Center, which will soon have a new name. It's going to be Peterson's Test Prep. This resource offers a lot. First off, it offers practice tests for a variety of exams like the GRE, the ACT, the MCAT, civil service exams, even the U.S. citizenship test. I certainly utilized this resource when I just finished up nursing school and I had to take state licensing exams, and I totally used all of their practice tests. Just like the JobNow resource that I mentioned, it has great career development tools such as those career assessments, interview assistance help. They have a great virtual career library that has tutorials or modules that focus on anything from career changes to the job search. This resource also has a great resume builder through their resume creator, where you can just fill out the fields job application style, so you can just focus on entering your content, the information that you know the best, and then you could export the document. It'll be formatted for you, so you don't have to worry about that formatting piece, which I know is a little bit daunting for some people when they're starting from scratch with their resume. So I think it's a really a fun tool to use. All right. Let's go back to the BrainFuse slide. Let's go back to that. Somebody has requested that. Sure. And if it's helpful, I can try to send these slides as well after this webinar.
Yeah, and we'll have the video recording as well. So.
All right. All right. I think I'll be sure to send out the slides. Okay. Any questions at this point? Well, we have our contact information here on the screen. So yeah, feel free to call us. We don't just offer the webinars, we do one-on-one help as well. I can help you with your resume, cover letters, practice interviews. We are meeting virtually with people right now, so it just involves us sending a link to your email so you get to still see us just like this and hear us. So.
And we're doing the same with tech too. So we call that Book a Librarian program, and
yes,
we can help you with things like setting up your, how to navigate your smartphone environment, practicing on Zoom, all of that kind of stuff.
So for our next career webinar, we'll be hosting Brennan Hightower from Parkland College. Parkland College is a career counselor, and she'll be presenting online job search strategies, same time next week at 7 p.m. And then we have more webinars coming up in December. We're going to be continuing them on to spring 2021. We have all those live, most of them live in our events calendar, but this is what we have coming up in December, resume and cover letter basics. We have ACE that interview just to help you prepare for hopefully that interview after you submit that job application. And then we'll have career resources at the library where I'll just be talking about some of the online resources we just mentioned, but more in depth. And then Susan, I'll let you talk about some of the upcoming technology workshops.
Yeah, so we just finished our last of our November ones earlier today. But if you're interested, you can always check out the videos for them to catch up to if you want. But next month we are going to do Intro to Streaming Services, which includes both a couple services that we have through the library, and then we're also going to talk about the more major services that are out there like Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Prime and all of those. And those are, it's always nice. We run that every year, every once a season, because it's always changing. Now we have, I think, Peacock and HBO Max, and so there's lots of fun there. And we talk about whether or not it's worth it to cut the cord and get rid of cable so that you could go all streaming. And then we'll go into Microsoft Word, and we'll do a couple of different sessions on Word. We're trying to keep them to about an hour, so that's why there are 3 of them. But we'll talk about some basic text editing, word processing. We'll get into talking about pictures and formatting pictures in Word documents, and we'll go through some of the basic, where does everything live? So it's helpful. Those are very helpful if you want, to be able to ask questions at the same time with a real live demo.
Great. Okay. All right. So once again, I see that we have another question here. I'll get to that in just a moment here. But I'll leave this on the screen if you want. If you didn't get our contact information beforehand, you could still email librarian@champaign.org. They'll forward it to us. Trust us. You can meet with us one-on-one just by visiting champaign.org/book-a-librarian, where you can fill out a request form. We have live chat, but just by visiting our homepage. And so someone here is asking, what apps are good for job searching? I always say it's per your situation. It's going to be up to you. Here at the library, we try our best not try to support one or the other, but of course we know people are certainly connecting with Indeed. A lot of people, I think, enjoy using that resource and signing up for their job alerts, just like Susan did with Google Alerts. Indeed has something similar. LinkedIn certainly has opportunities where you can search for jobs. Sometimes, good old Google, sometimes includes a lot of these resources. So I might do a job search and I'll see all of these search engine, these employment sites listed. So it's going to be, I think, according to you and your situation. But I think a lot of people they start with the Indeeds. I don't have a problem with these sites. It's just the uploads of the resume sometimes, because I just really want people to try their best to tailor their resumes to the job position. So sometimes I will encourage people to look at some of these sites and then try to go to the employer website for more information. Just again, goes back to that research, right?
And it all depends on your industry too. So,
yes.
If you're in a particular industry, there may be sources out there that are specific. There's listservs. There's, some of the things like you can join, for a lot of us, professional associations, you can join the professional association, and a lot of times they'll have postings where either it'll be, an email that go, like a listserv that will go. Listservs are kind of, I don't know that they're being used quite as often anymore, but they'll have a job posting on the professional website too, for professional associations.
Yeah, and per the location. So of course, there's one for Library World, of course, and there's one specific to Illinois as well. And I'm sure there was one for wherever you were from, Susan. But here in Illinois, we have something like that that's helpful. So Susan's completely right. It depends on the industry as well. All right. I will pause here for just a few more questions. And thank you, Susan, for joining us and sharing some tech tips. We really appreciate it. We hope to have her back in the spring, so she'll be back. She's always here.
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come in and help present on this stuff. It's very fun. And like I said, we're here to help. We're here to make it easier for you to use technology to accomplish your goals and your mission, and to help you overcome any issues you might have with it. So yes, we're happy to work with you one-on-one too, and help in whatever way we can.
All right. Well, I think I don't see any questions right now. So as I mentioned before, please visit champaign.org for the latest library news and updates, and follow our social media if that's an option for you. And again, we see some thank yous. So with that, everyone, I wish you a good night. Susan, I think I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Take care, everyone.
Good. Bye.
Bye-bye.